great.
Hi everyone, this is Garrett Bell with Denovo Realty, and today I have a very special guest, Brooke Maratta, with the Write It Down podcast. And today we are going to be talking about being a young business owner and the goods, the bads, the uglies, and everything in between. So Brooke, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. And so tell us kind of about your podcast and why you decided to get into podcasting.
So I went to University of Florida and I was going to study medicine, and I hated it. Okay. I was in a chemistry class and I was like, this is not for me. Like, I was good at it, but then I had that question of like, why am I going this route? Is because I think everybody wants me to do this because they're like, oh, you'd be a great doctor. You're so smart. You're good at math and science. And I'm like, but I hate this. So I really love talking. Imagine that.
No one would believe that.
I know. It's so great. But anyway, so I was like, the celebrity circle and athletes and all that always fascinated me. And I always thought, well, they are people too. And they're people with dreams. And I looked at like Ellen and Ryan Seacrest and I was like, they're so funny and they get paid to talk.
Yes.
And I'm a good talker.
And you're a good talker.
You know? So I was like, all right, to be paid to talk and I don't have to take chemistry.
Okay.
So I changed my major. Long story short, I really got involved at the J School at UF. And
the J School?
Journalism school. Okay. It's like what the cool kids say.
The J School. So, excuse us for not knowing what the J School is.
It's called the J School.
Okay. J School at UF.
At UF. And basically, when you get into that field, they do a lot of writing, and I wasn't a good writer. I'm a good talker. Just talking. So they had you write a lot of pieces instead of interviewing people. Okay. So when I graduated, they couldn't get a job in the industry because it's really hard. You don't just go sign up to be a TV show host.
Right. You got to work it.
You have to actually.
That's a weird concept.
Yeah, put work in. So when I was here, I met somebody that had a podcast studio in downtown Melbourne, and he was like, "You want to start a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, you got to start somewhere." And it was really funky because I like that word, funky, because you just had to like just start and like just go into it, and like there's not, and maybe you know this too, just going into real estate, and at the age we're at, it's not a lot of people are doing what we're doing and taking that leap of faith, and there's this little bit of embarrassment, and it's not like anyone tells you to be embarrassed about your dreams. You just kind of feel it. You start to post things or hashtag and be like, this is what I'm doing, and it's not like I'm not tied to ESPN where you're man, like Brooke's working for ESPN. So it's like, Brooke has a big podcast logo.
What is she doing, and who does she think she is?
Who does she think she is?
Yeah, for sure.
And nobody said anything to me. Everybody was super helpful and like building me up, but there's that little voice in your head that's like, what the heck am I doing?
And it's always like when you have one or two supporters at the beginning, you're always like super thankful for them down the road, because you're like, and it's one thing, like, you don't feel legitimate at first, and you're like, you're going in like you're uncharted territory and making it up as you go kind of thing. And you know, at first everybody's like, what's Brooke doing, or what are they doing? And then you're like, you know, you're self-conscious of that. And then as time goes on, I think, and they see you again and again, and then it becomes like, you know, a normal thing for people to see, and it becomes like less weird and more comfortable. But I definitely think, I mean, real estate agents in general, you know, brokers, agents, definitely, like, especially you first get into the real estate business and, you know, you start your first post and like, look at my new house for sale. And people are like, oh God, another.
And only your mom likes it. And shares it.
And you're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And then like to keep going like through that is the hard part. And that's part of what, you know, real estate, the failure rate in the first 5 years, like, it's 87%. So 13% of people make it through there, and there's a ton of real estate agents. So and
I think too, like, when you graduate college, there's this expectation to be in the real world. It's this, well, where's your 9-to-5 job? Where's your benefits? Where's your house? You know, where's your spouse? Whatever it is. And so for me, when I graduated, there's this grace period after you graduate. I say grace period, you have a grace for yourself. It's like, oh, I just graduated. Obviously, like, I'm okay. Like, I moved back to my hometown, and like, there's that. And then when you're like, it's been a year and a half.
You're like,
and I'm like not doing anything that I had, you know, set out to do. And so when I had moved back, there's that natural occurrence of you need to get a job in the real world. And I had bartended throughout college, and those that are in the service industry know that you can make more money than you can working $10 an hour for someone else. Yeah,
for sure. That's why a lot of people stick in that
industry
for like a long time, because you make good money, and then
and you can be kind of in control of your own schedule. You can request off, all those different things. And so I had that, like, well, I don't want to go back to the restaurant industry when I graduate.
Right.
And
take a step into a real career.
And whatever. And I think that when you have that mindset, it really can hinder you. Because, first of all, the service industry will always be there. And I still bartend on the weekends here and there. And it's amazing because that gives me the ability to go record a podcast on a random Tuesday. And that was why I couldn't really stick in the 9-to-5 mold. So when I did that and I got a job in the real world, I was like, this is not me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure real estate agents feel that way too. I'm just like, I don't want to sit in a cubicle and work for somebody else for 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And somebody said this to me too. You'd rather work 80 hours a week for yourself than 40 hours for the next man.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, and there's this level too of when you're young, it's like you're almost excused to chase your dream. Yeah. It's like, you're young, keep going.
You can look stupid and you don't have to like worry about you're not paying your mortgage.
Yeah.
You're sending your kids to school.
Right. You're not in your 50s where it's like, okay, that's not cute anymore.
Not that there's anything wrong with people in their 50s.
No. I love the elder community. Shout out to all my parents' friends. But with that, it's when I came back here and I realized I don't want to do this the rest of my life, work in a corporate job. Well, that comes with another set of insecurities, different, like being tired in a different way.
We knew you then, and
you did.
We did, and then we quit your job, and you quit your job during that time, and I'm sure you're. So, what did your folks say? How did your parents support? I guess to start with, because your parents are always the first. Like,
that's who you go.
Hey, Mom and Dad, I quit my job today, and guess what? I don't have another job, and I'm going to do.
Yeah, I don't have anything lined up. Well, thankfully, my parents have been like my best friends for most of my adult life. I mean, I don't have a big adult life. I'm still young. But I'm just saying, like, because my parents are so young, we have been able to foster a relationship where we're more like
young, hip parents.
Yeah, they're young and hip. Edit that out. They don't need to hear that. I'll be like, see, you said it on camera. But anyway, so my dad and I are very similar in the way that we would rather have a bunch of different things going on to like make income than just the standard, like, I got to show up for someone else.
Dad was an entrepreneur.
Yes, he is. And I was like, I'm not going to be like my dad. Like, you don't want to be. And then you're like, I'm my father. So, I don't know why I said, But I know. Anyways. So, it's like, is that Minnesota?
I don't know where it's from.
Northwest. Anyways.
It's Brooke language.
It's Brooke. Brookanese.
Yeah.
But I told my parents about it, and my parents were so supportive because they're like, look, like, you have great connections, you have a talent for it, go for it. So
your parents are very supportive.
Very, very supportive. They were kind of I wouldn't say they were a catalyst for this, but they were definitely like, Brooke, you need to do it. Like, if you don't do it now, you're going to be older with kids going, what could I have done, in my 20s with the connections that you have and the talents and the gifts that God's given you, what if you wouldn't do anything with it? And I was like, all right, so that's all I really need. And then, moving forward, like, so many things just started to happen as far as earning an income. And you know what it's like as with the hustle. Before you probably get that first sale as a real estate agent, you're like, what? This sucks. I mean, how long did it take you to get your first sale?
I mean, so it was probably
with you a week.
No.
All these people go 9 months, and Karen's like, son.
I was actually, I had a job when I very first started, and I was managing a gym actually, and I kind of went part-time for 6 months doing that. And it was probably before I got my first, I did some rentals first, so those I had some quick turnaround, didn't make very much money off it, but that was like my first intro. So I got a couple rentals going in the first month, and then, it took a few months to get like the first sale through, and but I have my whole family was in real estate, and it was the same thing where I didn't want to do anything that they did, and like that's so lame. I'm not gonna do
it's
that.
like my parents, and then you're like, I'm them.
And then I was like, man, I kind of like started to explore it on my own, and in my part time, just like reading about it and everything, and then I was like, this is kind of cool. Because I always like had a dream to like I wanted to be a business owner, but I had no idea what. And then the more I read about it, and the more I like watched videos and everything, and then I kind of was like, all right, man, my parents aren't so lame, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
they're nice people.
Yeah, and that's been super supportive because they were all in the business, and then I got in at a strange time the market was pretty bad then, and also my parents owned a business, and I had just like started full time, and they were like, "Hey, we're selling the business." Like a few months into it, so that was all good stuff. But but like my beginning of the career, I guess I got lucky in a lot of ways that a lot of things were like going on at the time, and like some opportunities that opened up because of how it was just all kinds of stuff was happening then. So it worked out well.
I think that's like the thing is, so many doors will start to open that you like, because again, you don't go to school, get a business degree, and then just take over a business.
No,
like that's not like. But
everybody has a business degree.
Yeah,
I have a business degree.
Exactly. So it's not, and that's the same with just kind of like show hosting. Is I always felt like when I told people, they're like, all right, well, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I was like, I want to have a TV show. And it's like,
you're like,
you're like, I'm
you're
sure
special,
you do.
bro.
So does every 10-year-old. And I was like, not that anybody ever.
The Oscars.
Yeah, not that anybody ever said that to me, but I was like, man, like how disheartening that we live in a world that nowadays it's you graduate high school, you go to college, and then you just go into that next stage of life.
Yeah.
And that's not realistic. That's not what happens. I think that's why a lot of people in our age demographic maybe, like, not to go dark, but get depressed because they're like, that's not how life works. You don't just move forward like that.
And I think that and now especially too, kind of like going in the total opposite direction too with, and you're younger than me, so I can talk about your generation separately.
Oh, gosh.
But
Yes,
but then also, then you have now kind of this wave of like entrepreneurship's cool, and everybody like feels entitled to like go out and like they can make a YouTube video and like should get millions.
TikTok.
TikTok video. Don't get me started on the TikTok.
Yeah,
the TikTok thing. But the point being is and it is that a lot of people like expect things to happen, but then they don't actually do anything. Like now times, like everybody kind of has like more so than the past, like way more of an even playing field for having the opportunities to do things that they want to do and chase their dreams and all that. But then you have the people that don't want to do anything. So it kind of separates the people like you who are like, all right, well, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go do it. And even though if everyone around you thinks it's dumb or not, you're going to go do it anyways. And you're going to work hard at doing it, and it's not pretty for a long period of time. And then one day, and it's not, it's, and I can speak from like real estate, like so many things about sales and getting started. They're degrading, they're embarrassing. It's just this huge learning curve, and earning your way, and it takes a long time to do it. So the people that do it and then push through that, then you get on the other side and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. This is what I'm doing, what I love doing.
It's worth the tears, like the literal tears.
Worth the tears, yes.
Yeah, and I think, so with that.
So how many times did you cry?
Oh, so many.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about my tears.
Let's talk about Brooke's tears. So like what from, I guess so. Well, you tell me about that, and then like what was the struggles from like the first 6 months of doing it?
Well, I think the biggest thing is my tears came from number one, I think stress and like not being able to control the unknown. Like you don't know what it's going to look like. Again, when you're in the standard mold, and the mold works for people. The 9 to 5 is like some people that's what they want to do. They want to show up to work.
A lot of people, that's
great.
What people want.
And we need
some
that.
People are super happy with that.
Yeah.
And that's what they love their jobs.
Yes.
And that's good. And everybody has their own path.
Right.
So and you can go super far doing that, but it's about what you want to do. And if you don't want to do that, then don't do it. You know, but if you want to do that and makes you happy, then good for you. Do that.
Right.
Work hard at that. You can go really far in that. You know?
And you can probably relate to this because you have family members who are successful in the business that you're in. It does matter who you know in the sense of it gives you that what is it? It kind of gives you an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Like to have people that are successful in the business that you're in.
Seen it happen.
You've seen it happen.
And that's an advantage that
makes you hopeful. It's an advantage that some people don't have, but that doesn't carry you through.
No.
And so whenever,
not at all.
No, not at all. So and we'll get into probably like the podcast and just some of the guests, like the unique people I've been able to interview. It doesn't matter like who they are. Like I'm still like crying behind the scenes. I'm still struggling. I'm still like wondering, okay, you know, with this whole coronavirus, so many of the little odds and ends jobs that I work have been canceled, and I still have payments and you know, rent and things like that where I'm like, where's my money going to come from?
Yeah.
And so there's definitely got to be like a level of faith of just like first of all, we live in a land of plenty in the U.S. So like, I'm not going to go, you know, hungry or homeless. Like there has to be this level of rationality.
Yeah. Like this, like the struggles that people talk about now, like not being able to buy toilet paper and stuff. It's like, and there's like countries where like,
they've never had toilet paper. Yeah, ever.
Yeah. You just have leaves.
Yeah.
So
it's like
it's a different.
So there's perspective for sure. But I think, and then I just have to like flesh it out. Just like, okay, well, why am I fearful? Well, I know being fearful is irrational and it can distract you from what's really going on. And I think being grateful for different opportunities of like, okay, well, I'm not on the big screen right now.
Yeah.
But it's, again, going back to that whole like patting on the head, I think that has been my biggest struggle of nobody's physically doing that to me, and nobody's even saying like, oh, like that's cute. Like nobody's really even said trigger words, but it's my own insecurity.
That's cute, bro.
I mean, like, you know, because, and then you can't help, and I'm sure you've been there too, of being like, okay, well, when I make it, like, you are not in my thank you speech, okay? Like, I'm sorry, when I'm getting the award. So I don't want to be that, but there also has to be this level of confidence. So it's like a balance between being humble, but also taking a lot of pride in what you're doing.
For sure.
Because that can either degrade you and take you down, or it can just drive you to keep going. It can drive you to keep pursuing clients or pursuing guests for a podcast, whatever that looks like in your field. So I don't know how we got in this conversation.
Yeah, well, I kind of have like it's the struggles. I mean, that's part of any type of business ownership. It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I think like on that, I like never forgot this time. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was this person who was very well respected.
Please tell it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
in the real estate industry, and I happened to be like sitting like far enough away to where like they weren't like sure if they could hear me or whatever, and you know, maybe some alcohol was involved, who knows, or something, but
it could have been.
But you know, they were like, and this was like, I think it was like right before I actually started, or I might have just started or whatever, and they were like, oh, I don't think he's going to do very good at real estate. So like it like stuck in the back of my head for like, I still like, I think about it now, like
that's how I would be, but like you can't, because you have to be humble and just keep going.
But it's like, you know, when the things are hard and stuff, you're like, God, this is just brutal. And then like you think about like that. For some people, I think that like discourages them, and maybe more normal people. For me, it was just like, oh, I can't wait to prove this. You know, I can't wait to show you something.
Meanwhile, something like that said to me on my.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, I've talked to like the people around me about like this business, being an agent in general, and then you know like now I'll open up my own brokerage and everything. But like I've said, like my number one skill set, or like the only one thing I was ever good at, was just like being like resilient from like getting knocked down 77,000 times and be like, whoop, whatever, I'll just keep going, you know? And I think that's like when you have that mentality about it, you can kind of, you know, it doesn't matter, like, if you're, you know, you're stupid, whatever it is. Like, if you just keep like trying it out and you just don't ever quit, like eventually you're gonna figure something out.
Yeah, something's gonna work.
Something that's, if you just like, if you get thrown up against the wall enough times, you're like, all right, and you just keep going, you're like, all right, something's gonna click at some point.
Like, my first interview was with my aunt. She's like a mentor of mine, and right when I said yes to starting a podcast, I reached out to her and I was like, she'd be a good guest, because she's really one of the reasons why my show's called Write It Down, but she's really the person that always told me to write things down. So I'm like, what a fitting first guest.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Like, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Me, I was like, it's different because you go to school and you, like, again, you learn business.
Yeah.
But, like, until you're a business owner, you don't really know what you're doing. And then you realize everybody's just faking it. So whenever I, was, the mics turned on, it was just, land the plane.
Were you nervous?
I was nervous. Again, because I hadn't done, it's reps. Because I haven't done a lot of interviews, and it was only like a dream, and I've watched interviews, I studied in school, and I wrote a lot of papers. Yeah. But we weren't sitting down with the mics on every single day. I mean, I did some stuff with, ESPN Gainesville, but it was, 30 seconds, not 35-minute interview of, sitting down and conversing and knowing when to ping-pong back and forth ideas. So it was a lot of me, and I still struggle with this, filler words of right, yeah, for sure, wow, and it's you hear yourself listen back, and it's
so stupid.
I'm such an idiot. This is not for me. So that was last year. I think March, maybe February, March, and I listened back, and I was like, this is not okay.
Okay, so you recorded your first one then.
Yes.
So tell us about kind of the evolution of that.
Okay.
So you started with Auntie.
Auntie.
And it didn't go so hot.
We're going to have to redo it one day because I love her so much.
So did you ever publish that one? You were sorry,
it's
Auntie.
in the secret state.
We cannot show anyone this travesty.
No, it's horrid. But I say that also because I'm my own worst critic.
Right, of course.
So
I've never watched anything I've ever
you're not gonna watch this.
No, because I'm talking if it was you or whatever, I can watch it, but I won't.
Never watch it.
I can't.
No.
I have a weird thing, but I can't watch movie awards either. It's a weird.
Really? So if I'm on there one day, you're not gonna watch.
I'll if you just the short clip
just
of
a little
you
10 seconds.
the accepting of the award. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just feel awkward.
Awkward watching people. Unless they're acting.
Acting is fine.
Because it's not them.
Right, but I say the movie awards. I don't know why, but that's one thing I think I always
Yeah.
But and it kind of goes with myself. I don't watch myself either. It's horrible.
No, it is really. I hate the sound of my voice, which is so crazy because it's my voice.
It's such a great voice.
It's such a good voice. No, but when I listen back to my interviews, I'm like, man, that other person sounds great. I sound like a heaving man.
Yeah.
But we're crazy. So anyways, so I listened back to this interview and I was like, man, I didn't fill people in on the backstory. I was reminiscing on stories with her that nobody is going to care about.
Yeah, they're cool inside story with yourself.
Yeah.
Podcast.
I'm and then we're listening back, I'm like, Brooke, how long were you going to talk about this? You need to have some sort of clock that tells you move on to the next
Brooke,
point.
Stop talking.
So there was no flow into other conversation, and it was just, I love and respect her, so it was really nice that she was yeah, sure, and she lives an hour away, so for her to come drive and come sit in the studio, and people aren't going to ever see that. There are stories that you have probably with your first few clients that people are never going to see. I mean, and I think those are the things, again, that you write down to remember. So
write it down, podcast.
Write it down.
Brooke
because
Maratta.
you want to remember.
Like and subscribe.
No, I'm just kidding. Not yet.
Wait till the end.
No, but those are the things that you want to remember to see how far you've come.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm thankful I have it recorded. So if I want to go back and listen,
and go, oh my God,
yeah,
what was I doing?
This is not for me.
Yeah, it's fun to see that.
That's
when you start to go, oh, I'm doing the right thing because look how much better I'm
getting, and just the things that are happening. And so with that, I never released it, and then I want to say...
I want to watch it now.
It's literally horrid. Maybe I'll send it, but
okay.
no, it'll like self-destruct after like an hour.
It's like a Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly. This will disappear. No screenshots allowed. So then that next month, I went to Tim Tebow's Celebrity Golf Gala, and there was a dinner the night before the actual golfing golf tournament. The dinner. I went to a dinner.
That's right.
And so it was cocktail hour, and it was there. I was talking to someone, and my dad especially would be so disappointed that I didn't know who this was. And
this is Tim Tebow?
I knew Tim Tebow was, but
the person you're about to say.
The person I was about to say. Yeah, no, please. Just kidding. I can't even get a word out with you.
I can't be a podcast either.
So, anyways, we were just chatting back and forth, and I knew he was a football player because we were talking about football. And he was basically like, there was a time in my life where I was watching football on TV, and I asked myself, what am I going to do to be on the other side of the screen? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the natural flow of the conversation was, well, what are you doing to get there? Basically, what are you doing to get on TV? Because I told him I wanted to have my own show.
Yeah, are you doing something?
Yeah, and I think when you're talking to somebody that has kind of arrived in their dream, they're like, they are so hopeful for those that have big dreams, because there were people along the way in their journey that made them keep going.
For sure.
So I told him I had started a podcast, and I said I had interviewed my aunt, and I don't know where that's going to go. Yeah, so it was so good.
It was so good.
Yeah.
You're actually trending on
exactly.
podcast.
I actually have 1 million followers by now. It's been a week. But in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it was one of those things as well as I didn't have anything to really show for it because it was
Did you feel like when you were talking to him, did you feel like awkward even telling him like what you wanted to do?
Yes, because it was so recent. Yeah. It'd be like, I started real estate and you didn't sell a house yet. You just got your license a week ago.
And I want to open up my own brokerage.
Yeah, and it's like, cool, you just passed the exam.
like, one step at a time.
You don't have a name tag yet. So, like, I felt that, like, it was legit in the sense of I did have a podcast. Like, I had even, I think at that point, I maybe just had a logo. I didn't even have her episode out yet. Okay. So I couldn't even be like, let's
never got released.
Yeah, I was like, it's never been out there. So it was such a, like, the timing of it was, like, uncanny. You can't make that stuff up. You know, there are things that happen along the way of your dream that you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, so in the case of when you're talking to someone who's, like, has done some big incredible things, they don't think anything big and incredible. You know, like when people talk about what they want to do, or it doesn't sound ridiculous to someone like that who has done ridiculous things.
Yeah,
you know,
and it doesn't.
It's like a momentum thing of like now, this person who you're talking about, you know, whatever they wanted to do, whatever you're like, he wants to do something. You're like, yeah, I'll do it. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's empowering.
Yeah, it is empowering. So when you're talking to someone that's just like your neighbor or somebody in your
who hasn't done
it, the cubicle next to you, it's like, I want to be famous too, bro. I want to start a business too.
Yeah.
And so there's this, when you're talking to big dreamers, there's the level of, well, that can happen. Mm-hmm. So there's a confidence that's like instilled in you. So throughout this conversation, all I had was a logo and a dream, pretty much. Like, it was very, very baby. Yeah. So when we moved into the actual dinner portion, Scott Van Pelt goes up there and starts announcing everyone. And he's doing an alphabetical order of last name. So he goes up there, he's like, Super Bowl, like, all these different things. And I'm like, just listening. I'm just kind of soaking it all in. And he's like, Marcus Allen. And then Marcus stands up, and I'm like, that's the man I was talking to. And it's funny because my table was here, and I was facing this way. And he was maybe 2 tables back facing this way, and he stood up. And I looked, and I was like,
you're like,
I'm mouthed, I'm so sorry. Because I just felt so disrespectful. Like, again, he is so humble, so it didn't
think anything of it.
Faze him. Yeah. Like, he's just the guy that, like, you want to be friends with because he makes everybody feel like they can do it.
Right.
Like, you know? Yeah. And there are people in your life, I think, that you encounter that are special like that you're like, if it wasn't for that person, I wouldn't have the confidence that I have. Yeah. And so, with that, he wasn't offended at all. If you ever watch this, you're the man.
Episode 1 of
the podcast,
the Write It Down podcast.
Yeah,
was Marcus Allen.
Yeah. And so, long story short, he was like, I believe in what you're doing, and I want to help you. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
And he was like pretty much a stranger at that point.
Yeah.
But he saw the little twinkle in your eyes.
My,
was like,
my hope, my dreams.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, I want to help you. And so we got connected, and long story short, he's like, I want to be on your podcast. And I was awesome. Oh, okay. Like, that's how you want to help. And so I'm like, I've only had like one solid interview. That wasn't even really good. So I'm like, I better figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
So
he was your first, was he the next one that you recorded after the first one? Wow.
Immediate.
That is quite, Auntie to Marcus.
Auntie to Marcus. I was like,
I
needed a personality change real quick and talent change. No, but it wasn't even like a personality change, but just like this is real now.
Yeah.
I can't just be chummy you can, but like just chummy on the mic with your aunt.
Right.
It's like
You're not talking to a family member.
No, yeah. So I had to rein it in. Which I can't very well.
Which you had to work hard at reining it in.
To just be like, tell me about your childhood. Yeah,
So tell me about the first, so that was your first
interview.
And how far after Auntie was Marcus?
Ooh, maybe a month at the most.
Okay.
3 or 4 weeks.
So
I scrapped her episode.
Scrapped her episode. He said, Auntie, we got Marcus.
Yeah. Sorry. And that's the thing. So people have asked, like, so I had the name, I had the premise of the show, write it down, you write things down to remember where you've been in life. Each guest has something. He
inspired you to create the name and everything, and then you said,
so the name.
I got Marcus Allen.
Bump you.
Forget it.
Yeah. So basically, she had told me that, write things down, and the show name came. I like woke up in the middle of the night, and I was like, I think it needs to be like write it down, but I want it to be like write it down, a little sass because like I wanted to be able in the middle of the interview to be like write it down, like have that because
That's good.
That's just
you gotta have some
sass
people to remember.
And something to remember. So I felt like it was natural to have her on the show. So with that, she had to write it down. So it wasn't like the show took shape in that way.
Right.
But now the guests that I've had recently has been taking more shape to be like sports. But some people are like, oh, so it's a sports podcast? Because like when I say the guests that I've had, I'm like, no, because like I think everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
So I want a business owner, a politician, author, doctor, singer, football player, whatever it is, they can go on the show and have something to write down. So I definitely didn't want to put myself in a box with a theme.
Right.
So when he came on the show, he had to write it down as well, and then
So tell me, when you first shot with Marcus, were you like, what was that like? Were you like,
when the phone rang, I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, were you like, I know I do.
I was like it's just like,
man, listen to it. It was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so like now I can look back though and be like, Brooke, like,
you feel like you're way better now than when you
first. Like I would love to do another episode with him because we have a good like friendship now to where I'll feel more comfortable being myself, and not that I wasn't myself, but there is somebody who you just met a few weeks ago, whether it was Marcus Allen or a person you met at the grocery store, it's this. They don't know me.
Right.
They don't know my personality. They
don't know how it's going to go.
How to exchange conversation. And we're also not face-to-face, so you can't read body language.
That's tough, too.
Because you're on the phone.
Yeah, because we did a Tears Over Beers episode, and then we did one with Skype the other day because, we're keeping our distance, and it's another level of complexity of doing that over the phone.
Yeah.
And you have, like, everything, because I know, like, even, especially if you're talking to someone, you got a famous athlete, and they're on the other line, and you have, like, the phone cuts out, and you're like, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Excuse me there.
And you can't...
Because you've had really good guests.
Yeah. And, like pausing... I've learned now that when people are pausing, I don't need to ask another question. Like, the awkward pause is okay. I don't have to say right. I don't have to say okay. I don't have to say wow. Mm-hmm. They're just collecting their thoughts.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what you're going to ask.
Right.
Especially when you're on the phone. So if it's like this pause and I'm like, well.
And you're like,
yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at a screen that anybody looks at with a phone of, speakerphone, ad call, whatever. There's not a person there. It's not. It wasn't FaceTime.
Yeah.
So I'm looking down. I'm looking at my questions, and I'm on my mic, and I'm like, he doesn't know me. I don't know him. Besides what I've read up on him.
So when you talk, like, Marcus obviously had established a little bit of a relationship before your first episode. So with like the other people. I know you had Danny Warfel.
Yeah, so that was the second one I had recorded, and I had met him like probably a year or so prior to the recording at UF. Mm-hmm. One of my mentors in college, he is really connected in UF, and I was friends with Danny, and so I had met Danny at I think one of the football games. So it wasn't as fresh as when I had met Marcus. Mm-hmm. So I had reached out to the mutual friend that we had, and he sent me Danny's assistant's number. Yeah. And so Danny's assistant and I are conversing. So I didn't have Danny's number until the moment he called.
Gotcha.
And so
how did you sell that? To like, you got a good break with getting Marcus on at the beginning because you're like, well, I've interviewed Marcus Allen.
Right,
like,
but at the same time, I didn't have Marcus's episode out, so people were just taking my word for it.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, well, I just interviewed Marcus Allen, and he took a chance on it. So I'm talking, so write it down. So Danny had, so his assistant and I were like talking back and forth. And she was like, yeah, like, I'll just put you on his schedule. Okay. And Danny was willing to do it because our mutual friend asked him to.
Yeah.
So it's really, really nice to have someone kind of be...
some type of segue.
Yeah, segue. So when he had called, it felt more like a cold call. It felt...
That's even harder.
Yeah.
A lot harder.
And it wasn't because I had never met him. It had just been so long since I had.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have... And when you met him, it was probably...
Yeah.
That brief.
Yeah, it was brief. It wasn't like I was sitting or like standing, with Marcus for like 30 to 45 minutes before dinner talking. And it was like 3-4 weeks prior to the interview. Whereas Danny, it was like, I think I remember you from a year ago type of thing.
Yeah. Like he probably meets a lot of people.
Yeah. So that was good for me to learn how to ask questions in that way because we didn't have a point of reference of being like, oh, like a couple weeks ago. Like,
that was the second person.
And then I'm trying to remember because some of them are a little bit out of order, just based off like editing. Like then I had my friend come down who I'd met in the Philippines, and she came, and I was like, I need to, number one, I think converse in person with someone. So to have like an in studio interview. So that was really good for me because we got like this one. But that was good for me to kind of like go back and forth and also kind of talk to a girl, and we could talk about like relationships and things like that because totally different field.
Football,
man, tell me about the Heisman. It's like so we were able to talk more girly, and I think that's also helpful. She has a story to tell. And so with that, and then when I think I might be getting this wrong because it's kind of like a blur, but when Marcus's episode came out, I had sent it to him, and we had gone back and forth, and he has just like been such a...
Did you send it to him before you even posted it?
I think so.
Were you like, hey,
I
make sure you're okay with this
I did.
I
did. I sent him a few, like, the files before I had gone to, like, Apple, and I said, look, like, I want you to listen to this. If there's anything, that you don't want, because he doesn't know me. He didn't know me at that time. So many times in the media, they're trying to catch people.
Right.
It's like a gotcha. I don't want to gotcha. No, I just want to...
See, that's another thing.
I want to share stories.
Get a clip out of something.
Yeah. So I had sent that back and forth, and then when it came out, I had sent it to him, and then from there, he has just been like, hey, what about this person? I'm friends with this guy. Yeah. I'm, my buddy... Yeah, and that is so big. And you can probably liken it to real estate of the referral.
Yeah.
Of just like, this guy was great through the whole transaction. Mm-hmm. This guy was not, shady on this end. Like, he showed up to, the day that, whatever, signing day.
Whatever us real estate.
Whatever you guys do. That's kidding. But it's that fostering of that friendship.
For sure.
And
that's huge. I mean,
it is.
Along the way, it gives you the confidence and then also the resources.
Right. And again, everything's about relationships and being a people person. And when people think that you want something from them all the time, they get guarded. So while I'm super grateful and super humbled that Marcus took a chance, when I was talking to him, I didn't want anything from him. And that's like completely candid. Like, I didn't know enough to be like that. And I was just so, I think, grateful and humble for the opportunity to be at that event that I wasn't like, I'm going to tell everybody about my one recording. I didn't even think like that. I was still just kind of like, that was the weekend, 2 days before I was starting my first corporate job. So I had in my head already that this is a year or so post graduation. I already had in my head that I was just going to kind of let the dream be what it was on the side and move forward into my adult life and get the 401k and get the benefits and like do the whole 9 to 5 mold. So this was the weekend before that Monday that I started my first job. So going into that event, I was just like thankful that I got to do a recording and maybe just dabble in something I went to school for. But I was now stepping into the real world and doing what I needed to do as an adult. And so it's just been nuts. But yeah, basically he has been super helpful in bringing other people and just being like, look, like, this is what she's up to. Like, do you have 30 minutes? Could you spend it just on the phone? And I think the phone is non-invasive at the moment. Obviously, like, I have hopes of doing TV and doing more on-camera things, and I pray that it evolves into that. But I'm great.
Stick with it, and you can do it.
Yeah, like, just keep pressing forward. And there's a lot of grace in being able to do it on the phone because I can go back and edit, and I don't have to like stress out with the camera. Yeah,
like right now. We're playing all this the whole thing
it's
through
great.
all the
I was
bloopers.
streaming. But so that's been super, super great. And so with that, it's just been building, and I've had a great guest list, and not many people my age get to say that these people
without
without really having anything. And
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it. And it's like the little engine that could. And but one thing I would like to say, and I think to anybody that's watching this that's like chasing something.
Is this a write it down moment?
Write it down moment.
Write it down.
I said recently, my friend, and she's so great, but she's stepping into like entrepreneurship. And she had like posted her first post announcing it. And I sent her a text and I said, hey, I want to let you know that I understand that to a lot of people this is just a post. But to get to that point where you're ready to post what you're doing, it's huge. Because
the world.
You're telling the world basically what you've been stirring up in your heart for years.
And you're super vulnerable.
They don't see that it took you 35 minutes in your notes section of your Apple phone typing your caption. They don't see same. And they don't see the hashtags that you've researched. They don't see the templates, the design templates you've seen. And this is not news. This is like what you do when you're marketing. They don't see you going on there and on Canva or InDesign
everything
and seeing the graphic makeup. And they're not seeing that. They're just seeing a post of this is. And so I think that right, and I just said that
selling Rodan and Field.
Oh my god, the whole time I'm marketing. No, that's always true. But I sent that to her. I said, look, I know what that feels like. And I'm just super proud.
I'm sure she appreciated it a lot.
Yeah, because she's like, wow, thank you. And I think that as long as you can be empathetic to people that are chasing something and not look at it as like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Because
good luck.
Because and now I have such a respect for small business owners real estate agents, people that market, because I know what that's like to get that feeling of no. And I worked in a marketing job of like, I don't want your business, and it's like, okay, well, this is my job.
We turned you down all the time.
We did, and now we're friends. But it's really cool because that grows you as a person, and so I'm grateful for every single job that I've had.
Huge learning.
But ultimately, it's the people that you meet along the way, and the relationships that you build, and that's why we're able to be friends that transcends anything that we do, because we're people. At the end of the day, we're people, and we all have a dream.
That's what it's all about.
People.
So tell me, back on your podcast, what's the most awkward moment that you've had podcasting?
Recently, I hung up on a guest, but not like in the middle of the interview.
On accident or on purpose?
Okay, listen.
Or were you like, this sucks?
I will paint the picture for you. This is tragic for me.
Oh, God.
I'm fine. I'm healing. But, so
you're still healing. The wound is not fully closed.
Yeah, we're on the phone, and I said, thank you so much for joining the Write It Down podcast. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. The guest said, thanks for having me, Brooke. It's been a pleasure. So we're done recording. Like, guy on the computer, the audio engineer, he's like, cut, we're done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I push the mic and I hang up. But he was still on the line. And normally, are you sweating for me?
I'm nervous already.
Okay. So a normal human being would say, hey, thanks for being on the show, once you're done recording, and just kind of follow up. But I pulled the whole, all right, hung up. So
oops.
I was like, this is tragic. But again, this is something that I'm going to want to remember not to do. So the guests that I've done after him, that's the biggest thing is behind the scenes are all and I'm like, okay, because I'm so I want to be done. And it's not because I didn't enjoy the interview.
No, it was probably a lot of stress.
A lot of nerves, a lot of stress. And I'm just like, it's over. And I just push the mic away and I want to hang up. And I'm like, there's still a person on the line.
And they're like, wow, Brooke was just done with the podcast.
Yeah, it's
that's all
some girl she is. So that was probably the most awkward. But there are a lot of things each episode that I learned not to do. So there are sometimes technical difficulties, and that's just life. And I think the biggest thing that I take away from this is we're all human, and whenever I could take aside the professionalism of an interview and just say, hey, I'm sorry for hanging up, I panicked, and you kind of break the ice by that.
It does. It makes it feel more human.
I'm a person, so are you. We all put our pants on the same way each morning. So I mean, but there's that saying, of we're it's an equal playing field when you make mistakes. I think if you're an overly guarded human and you're not, you stop being a person about it. That's when it really can hinder you.
Those things a lot of times make it so much easier. When you have an awkward thing at the beginning, you just have something super awkward happen between two people, and then you guys went through it together.
Yeah, it's like,
and you're like, that's funny.
Remember when I hung up on you?
It's a nice
But I think kind of in making again equal playing field of we all make mistakes. What I was going to say is I don't know how to phrase this, but let's just say something happens with one of your buyers. And you're in a house and there's crap everywhere, and you've probably been there. I'm sure there's so many scenarios where you're just
lots.
I am embarrassed of this moment.
We talked about them last time.
Yeah, and so you're probably oh my, there's a level of you that wants to cover it up because you want everything to be professional. You want a streamlined process. You don't want them to see that there's
the awkward.
The roof falling off. It's there's things that you just want to not.
But when you go through them and then it makes it better, you have an awkward experience.
So acknowledging it, I think, is the biggest thing, because then you're able to build an actual authentic relationship with that person.
If you ignore it it didn't happen, then it's
it's so if you send that text to your buyer later, just that sucked, let's just talk this through instead of acting like it didn't happen. And that's the same with just any relationship or business. So I think that's something we're also realizing in present time with coronavirus it's making us all human.
Yeah.
Like, we're all on an equal playing field
Yeah.
right now. Nobody's, like, all of the big celebrities are at home, too. You know, we're not, but we're not. I'm just saying. We're
doing the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, hand sanitizer.
I mean,
spray the air.
It's almost 6 feet.
I'm breathing this way. But it's making us all human, and I think when you can acknowledge that, then you're better in business
Absolutely.
and better your venture. So.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thanks for having me.
It was an awesome conversation, and you can find Brooke's. So your podcast, the Write It Down podcast, and then you got With Pod, WID Pod for your Instagram, Facebook. Yes. Find it, like it, subscribe
follow,
comment it, do it all. Follow
subscribe on Apple, Write It Down podcast.
Write It Down podcast on Apple.
It's great.
All right, y'all. See you next time.
Thanks.